is catch the football. That is beautiful. That's why I came to West Virginia, man.
Ding dong, the witch is dead in Arizona.
The totally energized Heinz Field, the power of the Renegade song.
The backyard brawl, man, against Pitt. Look at that. Oh, there's Ron Wolfley.
Wow! They came after Donovan McNabb, went after him, they played to win the game.
Everybody's going bonkers, even the referees.
Oh, those look like some sticky gloves right there. We talk about 50-50. Right now it's 50-50. Who's going to get it?
Game came with cover zero, man across the board.
Pick up a flag because, hey, and then with the Renegade song, even flags don't count.
They're going to get an Italian army behind them right there, just like Franco Harris.
My goodness, that is pure guts.
Give me a pepperoni roll, man.
Hi, I'm Sean Martin. I'm from Bluefield, West Virginia. And when I'm back home in Mercer County, you will find me at my local Par-Mar store.
We had that golden boot pride at Par-Mar. There are literally hundreds of Par-Mar stores in West Virginia, Kentucky, Ohio, and Pennsylvania, and even more on the way. Download the Par-Mar app to save even more. And whether it's food, gas, groceries, or whatever, we have you covered at Par-Mar. West Virginia proud, West Virginia strong, and ready to serve you.
If there's not a Par-Mar store near you now, there will be soon.
Hello, and welcome to the Three Wolves of Football, the boys from Orchard Park, the outsiders. I'm the Wolfman, Dale Wolfley, and these are my two brothers. We'll start off here with eldest brother, of course, and that would be Craig Derry. How are you tonight?
Doing fabulous, absolutely fabulous, bro.
All right, I can see the energy pumped up there
Ready
in
to go.
Pittsburgh. Up there in Pittsburgh, PA. And of course, Ponyboy Ronnie Paul down there in Arizona, Phoenix. What's happening there, brother?
Not a whole lot. I'm ready though right now. I mean, honestly, it's midweek, is it not? Of course, and this is a big work day for those teams that are in the Super Bowl right now. This was a big work day. The next couple of days going to be big work days. So I'm getting jacked up for this one. I love the fact that Super Bowl 57 looms, does it not?
Yes, it does. And speaking of looming, all season long, there's been one thing that's been looming, and that's been Brother Derry's missing tooth. And we found out that he said in February, the beginning of February, he was going to start the process of healing it and getting amended. What happened there, brother?
Oh, man, I rolled into the office at 7 o'clock in the morning. Think about it. You don't even have your cup of joe. You don't have your game face on. You're just kind of like rolling out of bed, get to it. You go in there, and before I know it, they got me back there, and they got you hear the drill going. And then you can feel go da-da-da after, because I didn't go with the, getting gassed, and taking it out. I just said, no, give me a local, right? I'm going to tough it out. I'm going to do some breathing. I'm going to do some other like that. About halfway through, I'm like going, Zooks, get it out of here.
So the process is they drilled a hole there in your gums?
Oh, up into the gum, man, into the bone. They got to go and they got to set this piece up there so that after it heals, like after 3 months, you can go in, then you can put the fake one in, and then, you're all set. But, I mean, Zooks, man, let me tell you something. When that drill starts going, when you hear it, and all of a sudden it's in your tooth and the part of the tooth that's left, oh, man, that is a whole new a launch into pain, man.
Yeah.
Okay.
The only thing worse than that is getting a shot underneath your toenail.
Come on.
That happened to me, man. I've
had it.
They jammed it. You've had that? They laid.
I told you about when Lambert came in when I got the ingrown toenail clipped.
Oh.
Remember? He comes in and they're clamping it and they shot it in 2 places and it was killing me, right? Yeah. And he's cutting through it and I'm going, Doc, hey Doc, that I can feel that. I can feel it. And all of a sudden Lambert walked into the training room, right? He's looking over the doctor's shoulder. He goes, go ahead, scream. Go ahead, scream. I'm like, no. That was brutal. Just brutal.
We are talking about
right there. had Derek Kennard, 340 pounds. He laid across my lap as I was sitting up. I was up, he laid across my lap. The doc says, we've got to immobilize this thing. And he comes in and he basically was like, look, there goes Elvis. And I was like, where? And he, let me tell you guys, for 3 seconds, man, your world unfolds, man, for 3 seconds. And Derek Kennard was laughing hysterically.
The only good thing I'll say about that was there was plenty of jelly with Derek there. it was like a big throw pillow on you.
DK was the best, man. Where are we going, Soda Bob?
We're going this way. Good news, my brothers, and the news is that we are now the Three Wolves of Football, the boys from Orchard Park, the Outsiders. We are on Spotify. Probably, the largest podcast platform in the world. And we got your big uglies on there. And, of course, my good looks. And we're doing the Three Wolves. So it's a really positive thing. We're on Anchor. We're on Podbean. We're on Arizona Sports. We're on Google Play. We're on Apple. I mean, we are out there. And not only that, I don't even know if you guys know this because you pay no attention to me whatsoever. But we do live streaming on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. I mean, I don't even know if you guys do. We got the Three Wolves of Football channel on YouTube channel. You probably don't even know that. But so now you do.
Let me ask you this. What's YouTube?
Yeah.
Stop. I know you know what it
Okay.
is.
What's Gucci? All right.
Oh, no.
Let's not go back there. So anyways, it's good news. We got some more good news keep coming up. It's good things are rolling. So the bottom line, my brothers, is you haven't sucked yet. and we're going to continue with that conversation. The one thing I wanted to get at with you guys is we were talking about what's Gucci, who's Gucci, or but he's like,
right?
What's a jabroni? That's Johnny the Steak. Got to lose. Those are jabronis.
Oh, yeah, I'm loving it.
Oh, my goodness. So, what a jabroni is, he said, that Travis Kelce said off of the Rock, and it was off of the Iron Sheik originally comes from, and it's the jobbers, those dudes that you can just go ahead and pummel and beat as they're there. They're called, what's they called, the jobbers. And then you saw Captain Luther. That was Payne and Insane. That was my buddy Blake.
Right.
And myself. That was Johnny the Snake was the manager. All right, Johnny the Snake. And then you had Captain Little Battle. We had that show. That was our beginning. I'm sorry for the bad video, but all my videos got ruined in the garage and stuff. So that was back when it was all VHS and all that. But the idea being is those are jabronis. Those are guys that you just toss around, you do whatever. You don't really hold off. You don't pull it. Okay, you're actually, those knees are going in there, man. And they loved it. So anyways.
So then that means, if we go by that definition, when you two guys were like little, like 10 and 14 and stuff like that, you were my jabronis. I got to beat up on you both.
and the Wilson brothers.
Yes.
Because you guys were all, especially me. I mean, my gosh, man, I don't think you guys even liked me back then. But, we're crying out loud. Oh, I know you did. And I thought that was pretty good there. What's a jabroni? Well, that's a jabroni. It's not a pepperoni roll, but they are jobbers. And those guys loved it. They love getting in there. And don't forget, when we're in there and someone comes out, you got to talk pig Latin. You can't talk straight up. You got to talk ears, you know what I mean? And if you want to say, you put an ears before the vowel. You know what I mean? So if you said reason, that's wrong. Or crazy. Okay, and that's how we talk.
I can barely speak English. Are you kidding me? Piglets.
That's awesome. You know what, Soda? I'm glad you did that, though. Yeah, I'm glad you explained what a jabroni is, because I promise you, there are people out there who didn't get what Travis Kelce was saying, like me. What is a jabroni? And to actually have the definition of it, that it's a jobber in the wrestling world, I think that's cool, man. Yeah. We educated somebody this week.
Well, I think that was the whole purpose of why I did that. And even though the video quality sucked, which my standards are usually much better, but the only video I had.
It worked, man. We saw Captain Lou Albano, too. I mean,
hey, it's Captain Lou, man.
Yeah, I mean, he was hanging out with Cyndi Lauper, right?
Yeah, with the rubber bands in his beard. All right, we're going to get this back to football, but that was the jabronis. But you know what? Honestly, it's a big week going on. The Cardinals got so much going on, but the one thing I did want to get at, Pony Boy, is that was A.J. Green. Great player for 12 years in the league. When he retired this offseason here at the beginning of the offseason.
A jump ball to A.J. Green. And how about this? The Cardinals, less than a minute into the game, have the lead.
You got to be kidding me, David. I cannot even believe what I just saw. The throwback, the pitch throwback to David Blau, and David Blau throws the ball down the field to a covered A.J. Green, who high points the ball and somehow, some way gets into the end. What a great play by A.J. Green.
And, before you talk, let me just add here. He had 727 passes for 10,514 yards, 70 touchdowns in 158 games, 10 years with the Bengals, known as one of the great receivers of the Bengals, 2 years there with the Cardinals. But, he's a factor, man. That's another big receiver. I think that was a loss.
Yeah, listen, he didn't have a great year this year. I think A.J. Green would be the first one to tell you that. Last year, he had almost 900 yards receiving. Stop and think about that. A.J. Green, at his age, the great Hall of Fame, I believe he's a Hall of Fame player, had almost 900 yards receiving last year. He really was, at that point in time, a good pickup. But if you ask Cardinal fans, I think Cardinal fans, for the most part, would tell you there's one lasting memory, and it really sucks buttermilk, and it's not fair. But it was when the wheels started to fall off, not this year, of course, but last year, when the Cardinals struggled going down the stretch, as they did for 2 seasons in a row. Struggled in the second half of the season and didn't finish strong. It really started on that Thursday night game where the Arizona Cardinals were playing the Green Bay Packers. That's where D-Hop got hurt in that game. And that's where the wheels started to come off. Again, not this season, but last season, of course. And they had an opportunity to win the game, and A.J. Green on a fade, it looked like Kyler Murray thought it was going to be a back shoulder fade, didn't turn around and look for the ball. He just kept running, and it was inside, I believe it was inside the 15. It was on the 10-yard line, somewhere in there. And it just really stinks that that's going to be a lasting memory for Cardinal fans when he didn't turn around, because suddenly they lost that game, and that kind of started the whole slide in the second half of the season, and ultimately the slide this year. Many people tied to last year and how they finished, and A.J. Green was right in the middle of that, and I think it ultimately got Cliff Kingsbury as well.
A.J. Green, man, I saw so many of his games. He was a rookie with the Bengals, and all through the years, the decade that he was with them, the guy was a monster, just a monster with big catch radius. I mean, long-limbed guy, but he was strong. I was surprised how he and Ike Taylor used to go at it, man. Because Ike Taylor was a very strong dude and very fast.
Yeah.
Well, Ike didn't get many interceptions. He got a lot of PBUs, and he was an excellent defensive back. And the battles those two used to have, man, they were something.
Well, I'm going to tell you something, Pony Boy. I don't care about what he just said. I was a fan of A.J. Green, and he had 700-plus receptions. And
I love A.J.
No, I'm kidding with you, brother.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you this. And it's tough to have that when you've had such an outstanding career. But I do believe he's going to be a Hall of Famer as well, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. And obviously with the Bengals, I mean, he really is considered one of the top Bengals receivers of all time. I think even more than Ocho. You know what I mean? If you want to get that way, I'm not going to get into that. I'm not going to debate that. But I will debate this because this right here is something I really, I can't believe. So obviously, Keith Hawkins, once again, he's been sending all this film. The brawl last week with you, Pony. The Steelers stuff with you, Craig, on special teams. He just keeps sending me this. And again, I'm not questioning it because I don't want it to end. And this right here, you got this tape. And it's really funny because he actually sent me about 3 clips, which I'll save for future episodes. But this one clip here is you, Derry, getting a little bit feisty here with the Kansas City Chiefs. But the one thing I want to point out is this: I've seen this look from you before, and I'm going to tell you that story when we get done watching the video. But I have seen it, and it wasn't on this field. And I'm going to move on and go ahead and play it.
Harris's score and a successful conversion put Pittsburgh ahead 19-10. And yet still the Steelers were a little surly towards their opponents. Order was soon restored in the...
Okay, brother. And the reason why I'm going to say that, I was looking at it, I'm like, he was being a little ticked off right there. But I remember when I was probably 13, nearly 23, probably 2 or 3 years in the NFL, and you were going to take me to a movie back in Orchard Park. And I was off jagging around somewhere, doing what a stupid 13-year-old is doing, out in the neighborhood, getting in trouble. And you were looking for me, and I saw you come out of our end of our street and turn right. You couldn't see me. I was at an angle. And you drove down the road, and you stopped in the middle of the street because I think I was waving or whatever. You stopped, and you didn't realize the car was behind you. And they stopped, and the dude gave you a signal of like, hey, right here, man. And you got out of that car, and the dude and his girlfriend shrunk into the car. When you started
Nothing happened.
And you started walking. You came out. You're jacked up. That's the look in your eye.
Oh.
And so I actually hid from you for about 10 more minutes until I knew you'd cool off. But that right there is the look I saw. It was the same look you had for me and for that girl and the boyfriend who gave you the message with his fingers. You came out and they just shrunk in their car and they couldn't get away from you. But you handled it okay at the end.
Well, regrets there, but when somebody is flashing you the "Hey, you're number one" sign in your rearview mirror with vehemence, it kind of ticked me off a little. So. Anyhow, it was your fault because we're supposed to go to the dadgum movie and I couldn't find you. And I'm sitting there going, "We're late. We're going." And then it was the Sword of the Barbarian.
It was
the worst movie ever created in the history of moviedom, right? I mean, it was awful.
Yeah, you know what? That was something else. And I think about that because that look, man, I'll tell you, that was scary. That was for a 13-year-old seeing his brother go down, and you were out like you had a tank top on or something.
I don't know.
And it was this. And in fact, I remember you actually threw the car in park before you hit the brake.
Yeah. You know what?
All right.
Okay, moving on. Nothing to see here.
Let me just say this quickly right here. On that note right there, every time I hear somebody swear, like, use the F word in particular, I think they want to go. I correlate the F word immediately with fans, and you all know what fans would say to you, and we've all experienced that. I correlate it with fans and also being screamed at by your coach, calling you all sorts of things, right? The way they used to. That was hard coaching right there. And I equate that whenever I hear somebody in a casual conversation dropping F-bombs, I immediately, the hair on the back of my neck stands up, and it's like, you want to go?
Better be careful.
Well, that's okay because we won't talk about your past history and transgressions. At least not on this episode.
It'll come out little by little.
It will come out. Don't worry. We know. We know.
Next.
All right. All right. Next is this. You're going to love this because this is Tom Brady saying that the game has changed and that everything is protected, and he doesn't think it's fair.
Football that's changed over the years, which I think is really hard for someone like me who's played a long time to watch, is like it's not being taught the right way. Like a quarterback should only throw the ball to certain places because your receiver is in danger of getting hit. For example, when I used to play against Ray Lewis, I wouldn't throw the ball to the middle of the field because he'd go after you and he would hit and we didn't always have the biggest receivers, but he would hit him and knock him out of the game. And now every hard hit is a penalty on the defense. So I feel like they penalize defensive players for offensive mistakes. So like if a quarterback, I was watching the Chicago Bear game, the quarterback messes up, doesn't see the blitzer, or the line screws up. I don't know what happened. The quarterback or the line on offense, the defensive player comes in and hits him hard, and they throw a flag on the defense. So they've almost moved the protection of your opponent to you, as opposed to where it should be, which is on yourself. Like if you're a quarterback, you got to protect yourself and your players. It shouldn't be the responsibility of your opponent to protect the stake. So in the end, I think it's a really disservice to the sport because the sport isn't being played at a high level like I believe that it once was.
Oh my goodness. Is that Tom Brady that every time he gets touched when he goes down is absolutely throwing his hand up to the ref saying that's a late hit?
I'll say this. Tom is spot on in his
he is spot on.
Yeah, and what he's talking about. And you know what? I understand. When you're the GOAT, when you play well, the referees tend to back you up. I've noticed that over the years. When you're a highfalutin player and everything else. The fact of the matter is when all this started roughly, 2011 or something, when James Harrison splatted Muhammad Massaquoi against the Browns years ago, and that started all this fallout of, the big fines and everything else. And the culture of football began to change. And I understand you want to make it as safety conscious as possible, but you cannot rule out every sort of injury factor in the NFL. It just simply can't. The game will not be held to that. It can't be.
Yeah, I feel exactly the same way. First of all, Tom Brady, what he said is right on the money. It is. Quarterbacks have got to shoulder the responsibility as well as to where they throw their guy. We hear it all the time. He threw him open, right? The term, he threw him open. I think a quarterback has got to be able to do that. How defensive players play anymore in the National Football League, I have no idea. It's incredible, especially when in pursuit of a quarterback. A quarterback tucks the ball, he runs. We know how much coaches value that now. A quarterback that can actually create and take the ball and run himself and cause some damage. And yet you got to come up and you got to determine whether that quarterback is going to slide or whether he's going to try to go for the first run. I mean, how do you decipher that as a defensive player? I don't know. Finally, and I'll say this, for Tom to say that, it is kind of ironic, is it not? Just because of how many times Tom Brady gets did get a lot of roughing the passer penalties called against him because he complained a lot and worked the referees and the officials. But having said that, that's every quarterback's prerogative.
Yeah, I think it's every quarterback's prerogative. I just don't know if anybody's was the GOAT at it, just like he's the GOAT of everything else. Okay? He was the GOAT of complaining to the refs, of working to the refs. I don't care what you say. I thought it was funny that he said that. I told you, I totally agree with what he said, and I even liked what he said about leaving the passers open. But the fact is, come on, man. Nobody's benefited more for the change of rules than Tom Brady.
Sure, and that's part of the adjustment he's made as a quarterback. He's adjusted to the rules. The thing about it is, I go back to when, James Harrison, again, James said, you throw a crossing route to a receiver who's running right at me. Basically, he's got his eyes, he's looking at and what are you supposed to do? You sit down there and you got to hit the guy, but at the same time, it's just incredible, like Ronnie said, what they expect the defensive guys to do. When you have this explosive capabilities in defensively speaking and being able to come up and put hits on people, then all of a sudden, and you're taught from, grade school up about hitting and so forth. And then all of a sudden, this culture is changing and making a complete 180. And now it's about the non-intersecting lines of force. Tomlin talking about that way back years ago when he was explaining the cover 2 area underneath and how the intersecting lines of force could create those big catastrophic, collisions, and how he had to coach to avoid that. And I remember him saying, I can't even believe it. I have to address this.
Yeah, you want a huge collision on the football field, just go ahead and run power. Get in the eye and run power. And have Carl Banks, the guy that's over the tight end. You want a collision? We'll get a collision. Google it, my young crunks. Carl Banks.
Well, I'm going to tell you, I'm on this quarterback thing this week because it's kind of funny and I kind of like it. So check out what Mr. Trent Dilfer said on 30 ESPN Sports. It was the Baltimore Bullies.
The modern day game does not impress me. It's super easy when you don't get hit as a quarterback and when you can't reroute receivers and when you can't hit guys across the middle. I love Tom Brady. I love Aaron Rodgers. I love these guys. It's not impressive. What's impressive is what they did.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. So listen, there's been a lot of throwback at him for that, saying that, the playoffs haven't been the greatest, going, first, second to last second, on a rope, all the stuff that's going on. But he just said what Tom Brady just said. So who's right or who's wrong or who's indifferent?
Who's he talking to? What crowd was that?
That was the
Baltimore. He pointed out and said, what's impressive is what you're doing. Who's that?
Well, the Ravens back then, it was a 30 for 30. It was the Baltimore Ravens, called Baltimore Bullies, and it was the Ray Lewis type age where they went ahead. That was him. And the saying is that the old rules, that was impressive. And so what Tom Brady was saying is, this, and he said, I love Tom Brady, I love Aaron Rodgers. Well, you're Trent Dilfer, and yes, you've had some success, but you're not one of the great ones. And you're throwing down that. I mean, there seems to be quite a controversy brewing, is what I'm trying to showcase here.
Russell Wilson had a personal coach, Jake Heaps, in the building with access who wasn't on the staff.
Yeah, I'm not too familiar with that.
How do you feel about players having their own people off the staff in the building, access to the players?
Yeah, that's foreign to me. That's not going to take place here. I mean, I'm unfamiliar with it, but our staff will be here, our players will be here, and that'll be it.
Yeah, well, let me just say that I think what he was really trying to say as well was that the guys that are playing in today's NFL, that's what is really impressive, right? Because they have to play under these rules where you could play back then and just have at it. Is that the way you guys are reading that?
No, I got it. That he was saying that the throwback guys were impressive, and that today's people, quarterbacks and so forth, aren't so impressive because the physicality of the game has been lessened.
Okay, so who was he pointing at when he said, this, you guys are impressive?
That was the Ravens team that he was talking to. And that's what I have. That's all I got.
The throwback guys.
The throwback guys. Meaning is that those guys, I'm telling you, so you got Tom Brady saying this out here, and then you got Trent Dilfer coming out and saying, well, Aaron Rodgers wasn't as impressive. You don't impress me, Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers doesn't impress you.
Yeah,
that's what I'm getting at, is that this is really wild, and there's something going on here. I think that some people better probably figure out pretty soon.
You got to get your buddy who keeps sending films in to get that clip of Joe Turkey Jones throwing Terry Bradshaw on his head, and then kind of compare that to what transpires as roughing the passer today, and then go back, find Joe Cap, right?
But we're all in agreement.
Find Bobby Douglas, Roman Gabriel, what those guys went through, and then tell me that the NFL today is a harder hitting business for the court. It's not. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, but we're all in agreement that, again, you have to do something to protect the quarterbacks a little, right? We're all in agreement on that.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
But again, last week we talked about the foul. We had I showed you clips of some guys getting whacked and killed, and while other guys like Tom Brady gets tackled with the ball in his hand, and he just gets down like the Grady thing. I mean, it's so up and down. There's no continuity. There's no definition of absolutely this. I mean, for crying out loud, last week I showed you a sack with the Chiefs guy and Carr, the Raiders, and Carr fumbled the ball and they called it too hard of a hit when he hit him just in the shoulder pad. I mean, because he landed on top of him.
See, I know, but
that's a fumble, but that's crazy.
Yeah, but to me, once again, the quarterback and roughing the quarterback, they got to do something about it. I'm with you on that 100%. But that's not football to me. Football is position players teeing off on each other and waylaying each other. That, to me, is what football is really all about. When you think of the physicality of the game, the thing we loved, guys, the essence of the game was mano-a-mano. It was collision. It was full speed, and I'm going to try to not only do my job, but embarrass you in the process. I mean, that's the game of football. That's the essence of the game of football. Now, how many times I got embarrassed on the football field? Pick me first.
He who has not been shamed on the football field.
But, again, I worry more about what's going on in the field between position players in the way they're really going overboard in terms, I think, of protecting.
Okay, so the rerouting. He's talking rerouting of defensive backs.
You can't redirect like you back in the day.
Can't.
I mean, I've talked to Mel Blount. You know the Mel Blount rule. Mel Blount was the reason they brought the only 5-yard contact rule. You know what I mean? Mel told me, he goes, I walk around today, and he says, I feel like all the young cornerbacks are pointing at me, and they're saying, that's the dude that ruined it for us.
I honestly think that there is going to be, at some point in time, they're already talking about an unnecessary roughness penalty flag where somebody hits somebody too hard when he didn't have to. I'm just saying.
It's already here. What are you talking about?
Pardon?
It's already here in the quarterback.
Well, okay, but again, I'm talking about out on the field between position players, not just roughing the passer. I
mean, I think I
don't look at a quarterback. This is just me. There are a few quarterbacks in the league. Josh Allen would be Exhibit A, Lamar Jackson as well, that are really football players. They are football players. I look at a quarterback more as a quarterback, and that's no offense to him whatsoever. But I don't think a quarterback is sitting there thinking about how physical he's going to be and how much damage he's going to have to endure. I don't think of a quarterback preparing himself for that as much as you would prepare yourself to go out and say, I've got to ISO that guy. Now all of a sudden you're talking about a whole different level of intensity.
All right. Very good discussion, my brothers. I'm not sure if we're done with it. I think
we'll never be done with it.
Yeah, I think there's going to be some more talks about that. But something, hey, I just got on this quarterback kick. I thought it was funny that Tom Brady was talking about, the game changing, that he's not the one who benefited from it, number one. Number two, I thought it was funny that Trent Dilfer's say he's not impressed with Tom Brady, nor Aaron Rodgers. And this topped it off for me right here. Sean Payton going to the Broncos. Russell Wilson, I did not know this, but he had his own coach that had his own access to the whole Denver Broncos locker room, that was his own personal coach that he paid on his own dime, and would go in there and talk to him about being a quarterback. And no wonder why the head coach got canned in 1 year. What in the world is that? You see Sean Payton's like, what are you talking about?
Exactly. One of the things that I found so crazy is, first of all, back in the day, when I came to the Steelers, there was no strength coach. All right. Chuck Noll basically was the strength coach. All right. He was the de facto strength coach. So then after a period of years, they hired John Kolb, who, of course, was a great legendary offensive lineman, became a strength coach there. He was, let's face it, he was in the world's strongest man, won the NFL strongest man 1 year. Fabulous Hall of Honor recipient, everything. As a matter of fact, that's his charity organization that I'm representing here, Adventures in Training with Purpose. Yes. But, The fact was, then we came on to getting a strength coach, and then it rolled on from there. And the Steelers, have hired over the years, and now I see some players hire their own strength coaches when you've got perfectly great strength coaches that are associated with the team on the team's payroll, and they're bringing in their own guys. And I'm like, I don't understand it. Why would you go outside? I know that you get a lot of strength coaches, some personal coaches that are capable of helping you, but to go that far, I just think you're asking for problems.
Tony?
Yeah, I agree with what Craig is saying right there. It's just, to me, it is a mercenary league. We know that, and it's one of the biggest mercenary leagues on the face of the planet, and it's occupied by mercenaries. And I know that you go to the highest bidder, yet at the same time, once you walk inside of those walls and you're in their facility building, I think you ought to be a good teammate, go about your business. I think there's a lot of guys out there who feel entitled. Guys that feel like hey, listen, I need to have my guy come in here because I am such a mercenary. I'm only here for a year. I signed a 1-year contract with you. Whatever it may be, it's just wrong-headed. It is completely. You can't think that way when you play in the NFL. I'm sorry, you can't. Because if you allow one guy to bring his personal coach in and walk around with him, you're going to have to allow 2 guys. And then you're going to have to allow 3. And then you're going to have to allow everybody. Can you imagine 45 guys, 50 guys, 55 guys walking around with their personal coach inside their locker room? What a joke that would be. The culture, and that's what Sean Payton was setting right there, was culture. When he said, hey, listen, that's not going to happen here. And that's something that I think the new coach, even for the Arizona Cardinals, is going to have to come in and say the exact same thing. We're not going to do this. We're going to do it this way. And you're going to practice this way. This is what we're going to do. And that, of course, will be in conjunction with Monty Ossenforth, the general manager, as well. But culture is going to dictate what happens in a lot of places. And I think Sean Payton was trying to set that culture immediately.
Yeah, well, I also kind of thought he was ready to just start laughing at him because saying, that's not gonna, you know who I am? I'm Sean Payton. And not that I'm some great guy, but I know how to coach football in the NFL, and no dude's going to tell me what quarterback is going to be my coach or whatever. I'm sorry. You're not going to win with that wet dude in the room. And speaking of which, lately, this week in Super Bowl row, that Terry Bradshaw came out and said that Sean Payton had some reservations about taking the Cardinals job because of Kyler Murray. Can you say that, Bodie?
Well, I wondered how in the world did Terry Bradshaw get the okay or feel like he could actually comment on what Sean Payton told him. I was really, really surprised by that right now. You know what? Can I just tell you this, guys, personally for me? Kyler Murray gets a lot of flack and catches a lot of flack. He really does. He's a very talented guy, but we all know that Kyler Murray, there's a narrative out there about Kyler Murray, and that narrative is not going away. And I like the fact that the narrative is out there because I think it's going to force real change in Kyler Murray. I don't know about you guys, but we're competitors. We are. Craig, you're a competitor. Dale, you're a competitor. We're competitors through and through. And although I'm not caught up in trying to prove anyone wrong, I am caught up a little bit in trying to prove myself right. And because of that, if the narrative was out there about one of us, that you didn't work hard at your job, that you didn't prepare the way that you should, that you only care about yourself. There's a narrative that is out there that I don't think is necessarily true about Kyler Murray, yet it gets continued to be perpetuated. You know, at some point in time, if you're a competitor, you're going to say that's enough, right? You're going to say that's enough, and you're going to try to go out and do something about the narrative surrounding you. Once again, not maybe to prove everyone else wrong, but to prove yourself right. And I think Kyler Murray's going to have an awful lot of time to think about this stuff getting ready for next year. And I hope, guys, it burns a hole, metaphorically speaking, into his heart. And then he says, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go out and I'm going to prepare to try to destroy the narrative that is out there about me. If you're a competitor and you think that narrative is incorrect, you're going to try to do something about it, right or wrong, boys?
Yeah, I would say yes, and I'm saying I sure hope so. And if you're going to question me what Terry Bradshaw thinks, I don't think even Terry can answer that question about what Terry Bradshaw's thinking, because that guy's been a loose cannon for how many years?
Oh, Brad, that's just Brad just stirring the juice a little bit, man. I mean, it is what it is.
Well,
Terry is who he is, and God love him. I love him as well. I mean, he's just a great guy and everything, but he will come up and say some things that you just go, where'd that come from? Okay.
Well, it was interesting because, again, I was thinking of Sean Payton, and I wonder what Sean Payton's thinking. Terry, what are you doing going out? I think of the law of the locker room, guys. I don't, even today, if a player tells me something, I'm not going to say what that player told me at all.
Absolutely.
It's just, it's even if he's retired, it's the law of the locker room. And I just wonder if Sean called Brad after that and said, "Hey, Terry, what are you doing?"
Or maybe the next interview, whoa.
Yeah. Hey, well, whatever is whatever. But I just thought it was interesting. I thought it needed to be, something to be thought about because I want Kyler Murray to be successful. I've seen him be successful. I saw last year he was not, and I want to see him back again because he's too good of an athlete. I think actually too good of a person to actually be under that type of narrative.
Actually, part of the problem is just what you stated there. So I'm serious. Think about it. He's too good of an athlete. That's part of the problem. He is such a great athlete that he can always rely on his athleticism to get him out of a hot spot. And sometimes you tend to fall to your strength too much. And then all of a sudden you've got issues because you don't really, it's kind of like, early in my career, I was heavy into powerlifting and heavy into things, world's strongest man, NFL strongest man. And that was part and parcel of who I was and my strength. Then, it kind of put a little bit of a problem with my technique for a while because I didn't rely on the pass protection punch as much as I should have because I'd punch, lock out, and just use my strength in close quarter combat, right? Well, then later on, as you get older, you might have wanted to pay a little more attention to your punching technique, pass protection wise, that sort of thing, because you rely too much on your God-given whatever it is attribute. It sometimes can retard your progress in other ways.
And so, like Pony Boy was saying, maybe he'll reevaluate and go with some more circumference talents that he has instead of his great natural ability. Okay, we killed that one to death. But listen, I'm going to tell you, I want everybody to know I'm a Cardinals fan. I'm rooting for Kyler Murray, so I don't want to hear any crap out of anybody, including you, Pony Boy. All right. So the next thing
way
is
to cover your bases there.
Yeah, no, I'm serious about that because I'm the same way about Kenny Pickett, and he's a pet dude. Yeah. All right. So I take my hits for that. Yeah, exactly. But
gotta be kidding me.
This one here is I was getting a kick out of a whole bunch of stuff. I got a kick out of this. Deion Sanders, is he old school or is he a old fool?
We're going to outwork him. We're going to out recruit them. We're going to out scout. We're going to out develop. We're going to get our education. We're going to graduate these young men. These young men are going to be on campus respectful and considerate and kind, opening doors for you and making sure everything is copacetic. And they're going to say yes, sir, and no, sir, yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am, or they're going to have to deal with me. That's just the way I father. That's the way I parent. That's the way I coach. I'm old school. All right? Sometimes I may look like an old fool, but I'm just old school.
Pony Boy, you spoke first. Go ahead.
No, I love that. Listen, he's laying down the expectation when you play for Colorado. This is going to be the expectation right there. And again, we talk so much about it, guys, on this show, but it's the right thing to do. Culture matters. And he's trying to lay down the culture of this is the kind of player we're going to recruit. This is the kind of player we're going to bring in. The tough part about it is sticking to everything that you're saying right there. it's easy to say this is going to be our culture and this is the guy that we're going to look for and this is who we're going to be as a team. It's easy to say it. It's another thing to actually do it. So I love the fact Deion is saying it. I endorse him 100% on that and agree with so much of what he said. Maybe 100% of it, as a matter of fact. But it's something else to actually do it.
You're exactly right, Ron. And I think Deion is right on. That's setting the culture. Who set the culture in our house? Dad, right? Okay.
Yeah.
I remember when I was 14 or so, and I had a little, maybe the testosterone starts building up a little. And I remember coming to the house, and I smarted off to Hoopy, right? I did something, I don't know what it was, and I remember Mom going, her eyes got big, and she went like this. And stupidly, I roll on and double down on my stupidness, right? And then all of a sudden, Mom goes like this, and you hear this, "You gotta be kidding me!" Like the voice of thunder coming from the upstairs, right? And it's Dad. She was trying to tell me Dad's home, which normally in the afternoon he wasn't home, but this day he was home. And I remember the thunderous footsteps, boom, 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 coming down. And I remember he turned the corner, and there was like mad dog eyes looking at me, man. I mean, this is like, eyes that you'd see later on game day. Right? He grabbed me by the shirt, and I remember he slammed me up against, the brick wall, that was right there by the kitchen, right? He slammed me up against his wall, and I remember going chink by chink down the bricks as he's lowering me to the ground. And he just ripped me a new one, man. And I'm telling you what, that was setting the tone right there, okay? Now, I'm not saying this is what Deion's got to do or anything like that. He is right now expressively setting the culture, setting the tone for his expectations. And I think it's a great breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
All right. I think because when you adhere to a discipline you have a peak performer, you have your lead sled dog, guy named Deion Sanders, who's fully capable of doing those things. You know what? You got a great opportunity to experience a trajectory adjustment in your life like you'll never see again. And this is a great hope for those young men, because when you fall under discipline early, even says it in the Bible, that if you fall under discipline early, it's a great thing for a young man.
Yep.
Also, too, God disciplines those that he loves. As a father disciplines the son, so he disciplines us.
Yeah.
Well, yes, that's the motto.
Around, right?
That is the motto. I want to tell you something. I yearn to open a door for an old couple. I yearn to open a door for a woman. I yearn to open a door for someone that's having a bad day. I yearn for that. I yearn for others. The more I see that awfulness out there right now, and this stupid culture that we have of the stupid culture of me, I yearn.
Yeah.
I'm saying it, to see and listen to Deion say that. And I'll tell you what, because what Deion just said probably was only about 3/4 of what's said at West Point and what's said at the military places in the military. Because that's the discipline you need to survive and to keep your partner alive in a time of war.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to take all this time, but one more example. The culture setter in our home. We're going into the Blaisdell Gospel Chapel, right? Prayer meeting, So Dad holds open the door. I proceed to go through, right? Ahead of Hoopy. Boom. You talk about stopping in your tracks. I'm going through the door. I can see the Wilson brothers and Terry Stiefel, all those guys, and I'm waving to them like this. And all of a sudden, I come out at twice the speed I went in, okay? I come back out like this, and Dad's got me by the scruff, and I'm like, And he goes, "Don't you ever walk in front of your mother again, or any woman for that matter." And I remember that to this day, and still to this day.
Yeah.
You will find me making sure my boys, open the door and do all those stuff. But that's how we were raised, fellas.
Yes, it was. And, I remember getting kicked right in the can for the very same reason, Craig. And it was at church as well. And it was at church again. It just, I love it, man. The older I get now, I think you guys would probably agree, but the older I get, man, the more I look back on it and love the fact that I had all these I had all
Life
these
lessons.
things, discipline variables that were in our paradigm that I knew what they were because of dad and because of mom and because of how they raised us. And what was great about it, guys, like a huge circle, everything inside those parameters were yours. You know, you could just totally, you could expand your mind and imagine everything, but you knew where the limits were, which filled you with confidence because you knew where the limits were.
The boundaries.
That discipline is what's beautiful. It's not something that's restrictive. It's something that opens up your mind once you realize these are parameters and everything in here belongs to me. I love that.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. And just to fish that last spot, when I got in there, the boys were going, "Where'd you go? You came in and you were gone." It's like, well, life lesson time there, fellas.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And that, for no other reason, is why I want to see Deion Sanders succeed. For no other reason, that is why I'm his biggest fan, his biggest cheer. Okay, fellas, it's that time. It's Super Bowl week. And that means that it's your pick. You are professional broadcasters. You've been around. Pony Boy, you've been down in NFL Row this week, I believe, seeing what's going on. What are your picks? And just break it down for us real quick. Give it a couple minutes. Break it down.
Okay, let me just say this quickly right now. I have no idea who's going to win. I really don't. I don't like making predictions. I don't. Educated though they may be, I don't like it because too many people bang on their chest when they get it right and then ignore it when they get it wrong. You know what I mean? And for me, I just want to see a good game. When I think of the Super Bowl, I want to see a good game, man. I want to see a contested fourth quarter. I want to see both teams being in the game in the fourth quarter. I think of the matchups in this game. The very first thing I think of, the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes and his ability to throw the ball against the number one pass defense in the National Football League with the best pass rush in the National Football League and the best secondary in the National Football League. Number one in passing yards per game allowed, number one in passing yards per play allowed. They are incredible, the Philadelphia Eagles. What is going to happen when you get the immovable object and the unstoppable force coming together? Those two, I cannot wait to see that. Pat Mahomes and their ability to throw the ball against that Eagles defense and their pass rush. And then, of course, flip it over, the Philadelphia Eagles' ability to run the ball against the Kansas City Chiefs. Their Achilles heel defensively in the past has always been the rush defense. Not so much this year as it has been in the past, but it's still, in my opinion, their weakness. And they're going against a team that runs the ball very, very well. A team that moves the ball very well. Jalen Hurts against Pat Mahomes. What's going to happen? I don't know, but I'm hoping for a good game, man, and I think we're going to get it.
You know, I agree with all the points, and you're exactly right. And I'm as a prognosticator, I have a fine future as a father. Okay, that's it. Just that. The point is, all those things are true, and I always go back to when I see a time like this, and you see a guy like Pat Mahomes and a guy like Jalen Hurts, right? This is Jalen's first go in the Super Bowl. Now, I always go back to Troy Aikman. When I remember Troy was talking about his first Super Bowl, and he said his biggest fear was that his knees, when he was being introduced pregame in the intros, that his knees would buckle when he ran out on the field, okay? Now, I haven't played in the Super Bowl. The closest I got was an AFC championship game that we lost to Miami. I broadcast 3 Super Bowls. Ronnie, you were there for one of them. And I always remember Super Bowl 40. Big Ben had trouble in that game. Didn't play as well as he could, unlike the other 2 games when he played so very well. I mean, in comparison. You know what I mean? And I remember there was some discussion at the time, him talking about the enormous pressure. And I remember Super Bowl 40 in Detroit. Now, here I am on the sidelines. I ain't going anywhere near the playing field. That game, when they kicked off, I could feel what Troy Aikman was talking about, how it was unlike anything he had experienced before. I wonder if this is going to be something that Jalen Hurts might have to get over, that hurdle of making sure that you're not overwhelmed by the enormity of the moment and that you're ready to go. Otherwise, this is a great matchup of two teams who have a lot of similarities. And I look at it, quite possibly that the deciding factor could be the experience of Mahomes over Hurts.
What about you, Soda Pop?
Well, I would say that the first thing I was really impressed with, talk about getting over that moment, I thought The Rock did a great job last year because out there in front of a billion people, he's doing The Rock. That was just beautiful, man. That's number one. Number two is, listen, it comes down to offensive line here, offensive line. The big dudes for the Philadelphia Eagles are going to pound it out. The Eagles have lost one game this season. Pat Mahomes, I bet against him before and I've lost. I don't know why I'm doing it, but I'm going with the Eagles because of the offensive line. I believe in them, and I really think they're on a mission. And you know what? Got to tell you, man, I do love Philly cheesesteaks. and with that being said, my brothers, great job tonight. I love you very much. Say good night to Hoopy.
Love
good
you,
night, Hoopy.
Good night,
Hey,
Hoopy.
you know what we need? We need a something out there that says Hoopy is our mother, so that they understand.
Right.
If you just tune in, we need some sort of graphic that says, "Hey, Hoopy is our mom." All right, so and she watches it, folks. She watches it over and over and over.
That's why our numbers are so good.
That's right.
And not only that, too, you should know this about her right now. If you're watching this. This is a woman who's 85 years old, going to be 86, I believe, in April. Yes, 86 in April, who could get in a three-point stance and fire off the ball with a flat back better than most offensive linemen. I'm just telling you.
Yep.
There's no doubt about it. That's a great visual there, Pony Boy. I thank you. And you know what? There's nothing like, I'm going to say real quick. Mom used to do that with my friends and tell me on Friday nights what I did wrong.
Yep, absolutely.
She used to correct me on Friday nights right after the game. Before she let us out, she would correct me in front of my friends saying, "You didn't come off the ball. You were soft here. You were this, that." That's what she did. So, all right. God bless. Love you, man. And we are out of here tonight. Episode 22 in the books.
Love you, brothers.
Love you, bros.